First of all, let me tell 1 or 2 minutes about our company. Our company is called Chili Publish. We are based in Belgium. We see Belgium as a home of graphical innovation. Companies like ESCO, like Agfa Pitman, like Zycon. There's a lot of companies doing graphical business in Belgium. As the founders, together we have a long history in web development combined with graphical automation. The company is only 3 years old. We have a very strong focus on software development. So we don't do the things that IO integration is doing, like integration projects. We founded in 2010. We can already say that we are profitable from year 1. So that's great as a startup company to be there already. Next thing, since we focus on software development, we leave sales and integration and these projects to our channel partners. We have channel partners all over the world. There's still some spots missing, so I need to update this map. But as you can see, that America is covered quite good. In Europe, we're still working on several countries, but UK, Western Europe, and Scandinavia. We're also starting up in Australia next month, actually, and people also starting up in South Africa. So we're very happy to have this big coverage. I think in the next map I'll also need to point out where we have installations as well. It would also be very nice. But we're already happy after 3 years in business that we have a large coverage of people wanting to use an online document editor. Let's go on to the products, and you see a slightly different. The company is called Chili Publish, and we have one product, it's our flagship product, that is called Chili Publisher. Now, what is Chili Publisher? It is an online document editor, and we see it as a powerful and a flexible online document editor. But it needs to be embedded in an internal and or external publishing workflow from our customers. So we don't do these workflows. And it must be usable by professionals, people I think in the audience right now, but also for end users, the non-professional users who didn't have the graphical schooling. So that's what we set out for the product to be. And then people ask us mostly, is it a web-to-print solution? No, it is not, because it is a part of a web-to-print solution. And this is an infographic that tells the complete story. If you look at the picture above, from left to right, you see that's the workflow, any online workflow, user management, maybe asset management, shopping carts, catalogs, shopping carts, when you come back in history, payment, and so on. The red icons are the parts that Chili Publisher can provide to you. That is the online document editing. And the picture below, if you see the documents, the picture, the one on the bottom, in the middle you see we provide an editor around documents. And that editor can be integrated into your portal. And of course, to integrate it, we need an API for people like IO integration who do integrations with the rest of the workflow. So we need a very strong method of talking to the rest of the workflow as well. That's important for technical people as well. We focus on technical people as well as on the end users' usability. But you see that in the demonstration. In graphic arts, it's always difficult to show a demonstration of a competing company using the same products. So that's why we said, let's invent a company that can do whatever we want to do. So this is not a part of our product, it's just fake in a non-existing company. We've called it the Big Spicy, and the Big Spicy can do whatever we want. So I will show you a demonstration of a marketing portal created by the Big Spicy. And in that marketing portal, there is a document editor integrated. And of course, that is the document editor of Chili Publisher. That's the best way to show you what are typical uses of a document editor. And we can also show how far we can push document editing in a browser. So I will now stop my presentation and go straight away to my live browser. This is the Big Spicy marketing portal. And in this case, there is a login in front of it. Imagine that you would make an e-commerce website. Then it's up to you to decide if people have to log in before they can start editing, or they can just go straight into a document, make editing right away, and have to log in at the end to do the payment, for example. that's completely open to the workspace around the document editor. In this case, we have to log in. And if I'm logged in, it looks like a typical online workflow solution. I can go to my documents, and what I see here is documents presented in a visual way. This is still workflow around, no Chili Publisher so far, unless these images are created by our system to provide a real-time preview of documents that can be edited. Now let me start with a very quick demonstration of a business cards demonstration. And the reason why I'm showing business cards is because it gives a good overview of what our editor can do and to show you what a workspace is, meaning that you can show different tool sets depending on the skill sets and the needs of the end user at that time. So let me start with a very basic example that probably 95% of all systems out there can handle. That is a business card and a form where you can enter information. What you see on the left-hand side is a little form, and on the right-hand side, front and back of a business card. I can go in and say, well, let's make one for Jill. I hope I get your name right, Jill, but you get the picture.
Very
what
nice.
You type is going, what you see is what you get, so it's get there. Let's say that Jill would have a very long name. I just add some characters. Then, of course, you would have to apply some copy fitting. It's up to you to say how much copy fitting can be applied. That's kind of logic that you can apply to a document. Also logic like, let's select another country. In Europe, we have a lot of companies, countries, different languages and so on, and they might have different tastes. So every country would have his own business and his own corporate identity. It's up to the designer or the agency to say, well, depending on the selection I make, I will make my business card look different. So this is business logic, we call it, built into a document. Things like empty line removal, remove a line, and it will reappear if you type it again. QR code is calculated on the fly, and so on. So this is a very typical use for a business card. Things that are important here is that it's happening real time in a browser. No waiting, no round trips to the server. And it's quite simple end user interface, because the person that should be able to use this doesn't have any schooling, so just a little form. If we go to the next example, then we see a business card linked to a data source, because if you want to automate the creation of documents, and in this example business card, you should be able to link it to a data source. Could be an Excel file, could be Google Spreadsheets, could be an XML file, could be your HR system. Any kind of structured data we can connect to. So, and if you go through these records, you will see the same logic applied while you are browsing through these records. And of course, you would just have to commit and save and order this document. The save and order button is not part of our document editor. That would be functionality built into the workflow system around it. Maybe that's already existing. So we just focused on the document editing. So same document, different workspace, meaning you see different tools, because the needs here are not to edit the information, but just check on the records that came from our HR departments. Let me go back and show you a very similar business card, but now we've created a workspace, let's say for a designer who doesn't have to enter information in a form, but is allowed to go in, for example, take text and say, Jill, that's it. I'm only allowed to type uppercase. That's a restriction we put on this document, and I can only select 2 fonts. And I can slightly differ a little bit in size, so I have a lot of freedom. I can even take the logo and move it around because I like it, but I'm not allowed because the company guideline says a logo has to be in the upper part, so I cannot move it outside of this gray box. I can even rotate it if I want to, because it's allowed, but I have to stay in this box. All happening live in the browser. You see a lot of different icons over here, tools. You don't see panels left nor right. These are icons. Just look at it, they are red. In a lot of other demonstrations, they will be black. You are also completely free to change every icon, every color, So the complete look and feel of the editor can be integrated into your solution. So that's just to show you that with one document, you can display that document with different tool sets depending on the skill sets and the needs of that user. But this is just one-page documents. A one-page document could also be an advertisement. But typical for an ad is that it will appear in different magazines and maybe also on tablet devices and maybe also on an HTML output. So what is typical for these different outputs is that you will need different sizes. So what we can do is have an alternate layout. This one is a portrait version, but I can change it to a square version for a different magazine, and I also have a square version with images. Let me go back to the portrait version, and let's say, sorry, we are looking for a new CFO. Don't tell my colleagues. And I move this around a little bit. I can now go to the other layout, and it's still changed. So the content is kept consistent, but I can position and view different objects depending on the alternate layout. Imagine you would use this also for a portrait and a landscape version if you would output to a tablet device, and so on. That's the use of alternate layouts. I can go to my square layout with images. We have 4 panels now, and they are configured to open one at a time so that people don't get confused. We've also changed the names. It's quite easy to do this. You can also select a different language. We have 4 default languages. We are now adding Spanish, Italian, any language you can add, just adding, send it through a translator, and you can say, let's put it in German, and your complete interface will change. Let's put it in Dutch. That's my native language, or just go back to English, and then it's all there again. Next step would be to, for example, get an image somewhere fetched from an asset management system, and this list could be a list of images in a directory, or it could be a specific query to an asset management system from images that is able to be used for these advertisements. Just drop it in. I get a green plus, so I can add it over there. Let me get other chilies over there as well. Positioning, sizing, you can all define in advance how this image should be fitting in there. Or I could even allow it to browse for a local file. Of course, then you might need to put in some pre-flights warnings if necessary. If the printer calls me and says, well, this document is a little bit too big, could you squeeze 5 millimeters from the sides? Yes, and now it is shrinking a little bit. All these frames are anchored to the side, left or right, so all my positioning is kept consistent. And in the end, I could allow people to make a PDF depending on certain previews and certain settings that I will have without crop marks, with crop marks, and so on. In this case, I'm able to generate a PDF. Usually what you would do is have a preview PDF with a watermark without crop marks to be able to download by the end user. But in the backend, you would talk to our system and ask to the system to generate a high resolution PDF and put that PDF somewhere in a hot folder to be picked up by the backend workflow to be processed. Maybe if it is paid or if a customer has approved a certain document and so ever. So that's all possible. What we will do, we make it possible to generate a PDF somewhere in some resolution on some output device. Next to PDFs, of course, we can also output tablet devices. We can make images. We can make a booklet preview like a page flip application. So that's the part for output for Chili Publisher. Until now, we have seen only one-page documents with alternate layouts. Let me skip to the next one. That is a 4-page brochure. It's loading the document editor again, and you will see straight away that we get even more tools around my document now, because I will need more tools in this document. Let me meanwhile also show you quick. I can go as an administrator to Workspace Administrator View, meaning I suddenly get all my tools available, just like everything in a page layout tool like InDesign. But of course, I don't need all these tools. That will be too much clutter for an end user. That's why we can define an end user view, and these are only the tools that are necessary in this case. And even maybe for this demonstration, we allowed some more panels than we would do in an actual application. In this case, it's a 4-page brochure that is meanwhile completely loaded. And in this case, the cover is completely locked down, so I cannot move any item in here at all. But I want to change the content here, so we opened up some variables. We can put this to news. We're still April, I guess, 2013. And I can now select an image from a drop-down and not from images. You'll see that it has changed. But I want to use a different cover, the one with the header on top. And I can choose from 2 covers. For example, this one. And I can just drop it in here. We call this concept snippets. This is a placeholder for a 1-page document that has different layouts depending on the snippet you put in there. So it's quite easy for an end user to just change the layouts depending on predefined layouts that are offered to the end user. But of course, my content is kept consistent throughout all my snippets. When I continue, I have a helicopter view of my document, and I see red over here, red background, red in my paragraph styles. And I also have a variable that says, okay, I have the red version, but I want to have a different version in ochre. So I can change all these colors just with one variable because there are some intelligent actions in that document. These are all the kinds of things that we try to build into the document editor to make life easy for the end user, and of course to protect the designer, that he can protect the design without the end user having the document moved too much. Let me zoom in a little bit. Now zooming, and I already selected an image, and that image is positioned in a square. I can move it around a little bit, or more than a little bit. I can also rotate it. Text will flow around, all happening live in a browser. You could allow an editor to go in, because that's what you want to do. You want to open up that brochure and allow an editor to add more text to the brochure, and so on. And while he's typing, he or she is typing more text, type is moving, and you will see these yellow remarks saying there's text in overflow. And in this case, there is an output resolution that is too low because it's a web image, and so on. So then the editor knows that he needs to reduce the volume of text. That's one way of handling it. What we can also offer is allowing an editor to go into a frame, for example, and adding more text. And while he or she is adding more text, the frame is just growing. We allow it with a minimum and a maximum, and the way of growing is up, because the designer knows that this part of the image isn't that important, so it doesn't matter how much image will be covered. An editor could also go in and select a certain paragraph style. This is way too much paragraph styles. So in a different frame, we have set up that you can add another title, select a paragraph style only with the styles that are important for this frame. So in this case, I would only need a title. I can add a subtitle, and it will know my next style. So I can just go on and type, and again add a new title, select title, and go on typing. So very easy to open up a brochure this way. If I scroll a little to the right, I see another frame where I can add more text. And while I'm typing, you see that a lot of frames are also following. These are inline frames in that frame. I can move this frame around. Text is flowing to it. This frame is growing or shrinking, and these frames are anchored to the frame above with a certain offset. I have some white space here, so I'm able to add more text in this case. Just typing some dummy text, lorem ipsum, and so on. So I have some space left depending on, let's say, English or Spanish. Some of these languages are longer. We have the same thing with Dutch and French. French is a much more longer text language than a Dutch version. So you see a lot of more tools in this case to enable document editing for, in this case, brochure. Let me go back. So we had some one-page documents, we had a multi-page documents. Let's see some fun stuff as well, because you could use a document editor in an application for end users. And a typical application for end users could be, I want to set up an e-shop where parents can order their baby cards. And then it starts, try to explain to a parent what a die cut is. And if a die cut applied to this card will create a hole in that card, and you will see the name through that hole in that card. So there's a lot of explanations. Mostly would involve cutting, pasting with real scissors and showing that to people. What we have done is a thing we call 3D folding. What is happening right now? It will apply the content of that document in a 3D way, so you can preview the card in real life to people, and now it's quite convincing to show them without any explanation. People can even play around with the cards, look at the back side, see the QR code, and so on. So this visualization will help people to decide this is really what I want, hit the order button and pay the amount. And then of course you can do all the fancy stuff in the editing part where you say, let's say it's a boy, and switch the icon from here, select the date when the baby drink will be organized. No, it's this date. Well, no, it's this weekend, Saturday. Then you can scan this QR code. You will get an icon reminder. You could allow people to go in and change the name. So I'm born, preview that again in 3D. So this is a completely different, it's not B2B, but a B2C example. But again, it's a document that you can allow people to edit. And it's again up to you how much flexibility you allow people to do in this document. You can of course do exactly the same thing with a professional document like a binder, which is also not that easy to explain even to people who are schooled in graphic arts, because depending on the number of panels in the folding scheme, it would look different. So in this case, we see a more technical view of that binder. So designers know where the die cut will stop, where there is folding, where there is cutting, and so on. So keep your design within these limits. The setup for this document was the one side would be full color and the other one would be grayscale, just to save costs. But I wanted to have a binder that is completely in color on the inside, so we need a double folding. Again, a lot of explanation. What you can also do is just click the button and try to show it in 3D. And it's loading live. Hope that Murphy will help me. Come on. Shouldn't have talked about Murphy, I guess. There it is. Okay. Then you see the binder in a 3D way. You can turn around. And as with the cards, you can play around with each individual panel. And each panel is also linked to the other panel. But how do I know what to fold first? Well, there's a little play button. You can push it, and then it will show you what is the correct way of folding this binder. You can still zoom in. It's interactive. You can open it. You can move the slider back and forth and stop there and then play with it interactive again. So it's quite easy to do this. Let me make a quick jump to the back office of that system, where a designer would create his folding settings for a binder. What a designer would do is say these are panels, and each individual panel can rotate X amount of degrees back and forth and so on. And creating an animation is as simple as making a playlist that you should start with panel 3, waiting X amount of time and then rotating 180 degrees, and panel 7, and so on and so on. So it's just a matter of clicking 7 or 8 times, show what it will do, and then this playlist for animation is saved into the folding settings, and then you can apply the same settings to a document that is similar to the same document with different content. It's very important. We've tried to make everything very configurable, and even for a non-technical person, most of the settings are point and click and just thinking, what could I do here? But again, the basis is a document editing tool. Let me go on with another nice example, a point of sales brochure. Point of sales brochure, let's say that your local store owner should be able to make his own collateral, but of course when the mother company would select some products that are possible in promotion that week. So what you see over here will be the design of the brochure, and in preparation of that we will create a snippet. And a snippet is just a small document that could fit in two little squares over here. So let me start with this one. And here we've combined a few things. This would be a document that would be edited in a design phase, so maybe not for end user, but I will show you what we've done here. Is one document connected to a database, and depending on the record you select, you will see different content. And we have one in a square version, we have a poster version, and a shelf card. And you can also go in and say, well, it is not €3 but €4, or you could change it to dollars as well. And it's not a promotion, so I should get a different label. And normally we should have a data source here, but something went wrong. But you get the ID. Once you designed the different layouts for one card, I can go to my brochure, and this would be a layout that would be open for the store owner. Something is wrong with my database, so I won't be able to show this. That's pity. The idea was that my products would be fetched from a database, and then I can select my products and drop them in there. If I drop another product in there, it will place it just like this snippet. And moreover, if you reduce the size of that frame, it will find a different layout that will fit better, because it has alternate layouts. So I have a portrait version, I have a square version, and for example, if I put this one here, this is magnetic, and if I stretch it more, then I have a landscape version. So depending on how you position it, so 90% of the layout is already done. So the store owner, in this case, there's a lot of freedom, of course, but you could limit it a little more. This one should get the square version as well. So, but you see the idea that a store owner gets some flexibility, but is pushed to do certain things in a certain way. QR codes. Let's say you want to do a variable, a mailing merge, variable data. We have seen variable data in the second business card. Imagine that you would have data from a data source that would need to generate a QR code. Let's start with the most basic one, a QR code with fixed text. I want a QR code with an email. We can combine fixed text with email variable, and the email variable is depending on what is entered over here. So instead of info, I will use my name, and then all the QR codes that are depending on the email field will be regenerated. Even a V-card, which is a combination of a lot of text and some variables, so it's quite flexible. If there would be a new standard for V-cards, the 2.2, you would just need to update the content of that QR code, and it will generate a new QR code for you. If you want to go fancy, you can also use colors, but I would suggest to leave it to black and white, because the most of the readers will get the best result with black and white. So QR codes can be made, in this case it's variable with one field, it could be a data source as well. And talking about a data source, let me show you a data source. And I hope this one is working. There it is. It is loading a page, front and back. I have my data source settings, which is connected to Google Spreadsheets. And let me zoom in a little bit more, where you can see that a lot of information is variable, the barcode, the name, and so on. And if I go through my records over here, I even see that next to the variable data, also the information on the back is changing. In this case, depending on the preferences you gathered from a marketing campaign, you could push out different vouchers to certain people. Of course, this would be a setup to define the campaign and say, okay, this is good, but we have to do this every month. So I don't want to open an editor every month and go through it and see, no, I know it will be okay after 3 or 4 tests. So what you can also do in your workflow somewhere, have this document automated, allow people to upload XML, XLS, or just select, in this case it's random, a number of records from a database, and then just push a button, generate PDF. And this button is now talking to the Chili Publisher server, which doesn't need the interface for the end user, but will generate a PDF with all these variable data. Now let me find out, because it will take a few seconds, if I have one from a previous generation. Yep, that's the one. So I have a folder, and this procedure, which will take a few more seconds, has generated a file with in there the backdrop with the static data without the variable data. Let's say you would print this in offset if there is a large amount. And then we have a PDF with all the variable stuff that will be printed digitally on top of the other document. You could also choose to combine these documents, because everything could be printed on a digital press, the static version and the dynamic data all together. You would also get the log file. By now it has done. You can download the PDF, but it will just be the same thing that I just showed you. So next to the visual document editor, there is a very strong server behind it that does all the heavy lifting, creating the PDF, converting images, and so on and so on. That is happening in the background of this system. I think that's about it for all the, well, let's go one more document in the same philosophy of enabling all kinds of tools to make end users' life much easier. In this case, it could be a fun poster for a colleague wanted, but I want this poster to be in sepia. Well, a sepia filter is something that you would define in the Chili back office, image transformations, where I have sepia, and then I can add all the technical stuff. I even have a test transformation with convert to paint, convert to sepia, and all kinds of different effects that are defined. You only have to do this once, and for an end user, it would be presented as a list of transformations, or you could even hide this panel and apply a certain filter to an image straight out of the box like that. And in this case, you could allow people to upload an image or select one from a list. And depending on which image you will choose, it will convert to sepia. And some of these pictures were in color, so let's convert and use the paint transformation, and then it will generate a new preview. And as you see the loader, now the server is working on a new preview. And if the preview is done, I can go ahead and it goes much faster. So all kinds of tools, again, to make document editing easy for an end user. I could go on for an hour, but since we talked about 40 minutes, I'm getting very close. Jill, I hope I have 5 more minutes to show 1 or 2 more things. I guess no is, that's okay. Let's do something scary and open my own Facebook application. in Facebook, we have created an application for our own demonstration. And in this case, we created a Facebook app for Drupal, so it's a few months old. What I can do there is open up an application that will enable me to edit a comic book. And the great thing is, since Chili Publisher can be connected to external systems in the broad sense of the word, I can select a picture and Chili Publisher can get my Facebook images. So in this case, I have my kids in here. These are my pictures from my Facebook accounts. And I can just drag these pictures into my own comic book. And now Chili Publisher is fetching the image from Facebook, and I can put them over here. And now it's copied onto the Facebook, onto the Chili server, and I can move around my snippets with the balloons. I can change text in here, so you get the image of creating your own comic book with your pictures. And from there on, you can publish it. I won't spam my timeline because I already spammed my friends too much with this comic book. But you get the idea. The Chili Publisher server will now generate a PDF and send a preview and post it on your friend's timeline, or you could enable people to download it. That's completely custom built for this application. But again, it's a Chili editor that's in there. And one more thing I would like to show you, because people are thinking about, okay, but how do I start? Well, I guess that a lot of artwork and documents already exist in InDesign, and you've seen the wanted poster already. Well, what we've done is in InDesign created a plugin. And what this plugin does, it will connect to your server. In this case, it is our demonstration server. You can select where to send the file to a certain environment. An environment could be for customer X or division Y of every kind of end user, of customer. And then store that document on a certain location on a Chili server. If I hit start conversion, it will say I have to save first, so let's do that. And it will start to convert this document to a Chili editor. Once it is converted, I can open up Chili editor and then apply some document logic on top of my document. For example, make the variable amount, make it a variable with a form field, make dead or alive editable. Our plugin will also show you that if there is some warnings or pre-flight warnings, you can say, okay, this frame might be very small, so maybe I could just enlarge it a little bit, or I could do this in Chili editor. But if I say, okay, that's good, save my document, what will happen now, it will convert this document to the Chili editor onto a specific server. And it will open up in my browser right away with full administration rights, so I can start straight away in customizing this document. And you will see I have the complete look and feel, the default gray look, and now it's up to me to start customizing this document so it's ready to use online. I can start making some variables, variable data, make a new variable, apply it to this field, and if I have a variable here, just do that very quickly. That would be the amount. Okay, close that. And in this field, add the variable amount, and this frame is a variable. So from now on, I can say this is 1500 euros. So that's how difficult it is. I converted the document real time now, and I created my first variable so people can just use this variable input panel. Now I only have to remove all the other panels, but I think that will be some content for another webinar. I just wanted to show you how easy it is to start with your own document, so your designers can still work in their favorite tools. But again, once you publish a document online to be edited, you can convert it quite easily. I think that was in just over 40 minutes what I could offer you. And I think, Jill, maybe now is the time for people for questions, or is there anything else someone wants to see, or maybe a challenge I can take on from anybody?
Does anybody have any questions? I invite you to put them in the questions area. So how do we present fonts to the Chili system?
Okay, with the conversion we've done over here, let me go back one step. There are fonts linked to this document in InDesign, and we support open type fonts. What is happening is that the fonts are copied onto the Chili system, so you will need to check with your fonts licenses if you can use them on a server, because you will be presenting these fonts onto a wide audience online, so you need to check that. And in the Chili system, there is a repository for fonts where there is folders. Let's say I have webinar IO over here. Do I have webinar 2? And these are the fonts. So the fonts are copied with the document conversion. That's one thing. On the other hand, if you go to the editor, fonts are then presented in the font selection panel. And in the next release, that's for one of the upcoming days or weeks, we will also be able to show the fonts in these pop-up lists with their actual look. So I hope this answers the question.
I think it does. And I think you also mentioned the other question was what font formats are covered. I believe it's open fonts.
Open type fonts indeed. As of today, it's open type fonts.
Okay. So no separate fonts are available for upload.
No, it's. I think there's a default. I think it's Arial that is on every machine that is available there, but it's completely depending on what a designer has used in the design before he pushed the document to the browser. So basically, any font that is available in OpenType is available for the editor that can be used.
Great. And then one other thing is who does the support? So if we were to purchase Chili Publish, who does the support integration? And so when
there's. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Just I believe they purchase the licenses directly from you.
Indeed, we. Well, it's in your case it would be IO integration with the reseller. You will have the contact, and you would be able to provide some support on several levels. On our level, for the license owner, so the customer, we provide support through a ticketing system, and we guarantee we'll get an answer within 48 hours on support questions. Again, of course, that is on the document editor. If an integrator would provide a complete workflow solution, of course, our support is about the document editor and not a complete solution. And sometimes, and a lot of times, we work together with people like you and other persons, because the quest will be, is it a challenge for document editing, or is it the asset management, for example, who is providing other information than expected? So, and then we work with the integrators to find a solution for what is happening outside of the scope of what you're seeing.
So in our case, of course, IO integration would provide the integration and support for first level, and then we would work directly with you with issues that needed to be escalated. Can you tell us a little bit more about types of digital asset management systems and other integrations that you've seen done commonly with Chili Publisher?
We've seen connections on the side of asset management. We had an alfresco connector pretty early. Then one of the second ones was the Zynet integration. I think we have a native panel for Zynet integration. I think you also very strong in Zynet, I guess.
We are, yes.
Yeah, so there is an integration with Zynet, and basically any kind of asset management system who can provide a structured XML to do queries on the database of the asset management, we can query. You've seen Facebook, we can do Google, but that's more the documents and the data. Any kind of structured data. Let me show you very quickly. That is on the external systems. We have Zynet service, we have Switch server, we have connections to Switch as well. But data sources could be anything. It could be anything from an external URL, and I think that's I don't know if I have one over here. external URL. For example, this would be a URL, could be public or could be behind a firewall, that will do requests to get some information from an asset management system that will then present images or data, metadata, into the editor so people can drag and drop this information onto the documents.
Great.
So basically a lot of systems, but Zynet is just built in there. We have one of our Norwegian where we can connect to, so you can define certain settings to connect to the Zynet server, and then you make a connection on the server level, and on a document level you can then connect and also pass user information. So depending on a user or a group, you would then get different feedback if you want to.
So as long as you're attached to a digital asset management system, there's version control, obviously. But what about, is there version control within Chili Publisher itself if you wanted to jump back to a previous version?
No, what we do is we allow a document, and that is in a very wide sense. It's a document, and a document is just a file on a server. If you want to provide versioning, we would build that in. We would ask our customers or you to build that into the workflow solution. Mm-hmm. If you say, I allow a customer into my solution and they get a document, this would be version 1. If they hit the button save, then you would back up the first version and overwrite the one and have version 2. But you would have to keep track of the documents in your version control in the system. So we don't have version control in our system.
Okay. And
another one, but that's a quite it's a quite technical solution. People who are familiar with Subversion, that's a versioning system for source code, and since we are IT company, we use that a lot. We've seen people who are using Subversion to do version controls because our files are XML files, so basically text files. So if you have a versioning control system around that, you can also use this.
Okay. Is this system capable of pre-flighting?
Indeed, it is. Let me go to this document. We have a panel somewhere that says pre-flight results. In this case, there is no pre-flight warnings. You can set some thresholds. For example, my minimum output resolution would be 600 dpi, and then some flags will pop up because this image only has 184 dpi, and it will generate a warning. Or I can say, if my image output resolution is not good, then give me an error and prevent me to save if there are errors. So you can set up the pre-flight settings however you want them to be, and then you would get a list of these and of this information. And the workflow solution could even query the document to see if there are any pre-flight warnings in that document.
And then another question was, can it work with different pre-flight profiles?
Not built in. Every document has its pre-flight settings, but what you can do, we have a connection with, for example, switch, where you could set up a connection to a certain switch server who could then connect to a pit stop and then pre-flight it from there.
Okay. And is the editor viewable through an iPad? What's the integration with mobile devices?
What we will do on mobile devices, you've seen this, and up till now, our editor is in Flex. So out of the box, this editor is not viewable in the iPad. Our idea about that is we can guarantee the complexity of an editor like a page layout tool on all the browsers online who can support Flash. On the other hand, if you want to have an editor on your iPad, for example, let me go here, then we would suggest to create an application like this, which is completely in HTML5, and it's up to you because on a tablet you wouldn't have 70 tools because your fingers are just not fine enough to do some fine corrections. But let's say this is a card you would offer on an iPad, let's say a baby card or a poster. And then in this case, we would do a little round trip to the server. And because we have all the heavy lifting on the server would generate the preview and then send it back to the iPads. Of course, without mentioning too much, we're working on new versions as well, and we're keeping a very close look on what is happening. Big difficulty is that in the corporate and enterprise world, we can now guarantee compatibility throughout our browsers and a lot of systems. If you go to technology like HTML5, which is used on a tablet, it's not a standard yet. A lot of different implementations, so that's why we are moving somewhere in between and providing a solution for both worlds.
Okay, let's see. Another question was, you mentioned the system can use metadata from systems like Zynet. Can the system be used to use this metadata to automate the creation of artwork with variable data and output as a predefined setting?
If you're talking about automatic placement of elements on the page, not right now. On the other hand, since we have a very strong API, you could make, it would be very easy to get this metadata in snippets, like with the point of sales brochure, where you put the information with the workflow tools around it. Let me just try this again and to show you the metadata. I hope the connection works right now. So out of the box, Chili does not automatically lay out a page for you. Okay, now my metadata is getting here as well. So what it's getting here, this is information from an external system with images and the metadata. It is only showing the image and the name, but in this case, I can drag the image in here, and that's what I wanted to show you earlier that didn't work. And now it is getting the name, the price, the description, and so on, and the image. And I can still select the information. And in this case, I'm even able to go in and do some last-minute updates. The price is now 1.9, so, and you will see the updates right away. So this metadata is fetched from the asset management system as well as the image.
Okay. And what's the management for swap and gray call specifications?
Sorry, didn't get the last. What's the
swap and gray call?
Could you repeat it?
Yes. In terms of the pre-flighting again? How does it handle swap and gray call specifications?
I would have to pass that question to our product manager, but he's not around here, so that would be out of my comfort zone, let's say.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions? One was the 3D visualization, which I believe you showed us with the cards. Did you want to talk more about the 3D visualization?
Yeah, indeed. What can I go into detail? Anything specific? As a basic concept, we are a document editor, so we will try to find the balance. We are not, people have asked us, can you make boxes? And yes, we can, but it's not our goal. Let me just show you one preview on a server that is inside here. We will always use the 3D visualization. That's also why we call it 3D folding. It's to show folded contents. We will try to push it a little further. It will never be a tool to create 3D models. It will always project a document information on that system. And we will push it as far as we would like. For example, this one, I guess it's folding settings, folding. This is, by the way, something coming up for the next release. We will be able to do much more animation and have boxes and so on. For example, what we can do in this case is have some camera positioning. So what you could do here is make a box, make it rotate, open and close it, and so on. Even jump around, but that's developer fun, I guess. Our idea with the 3D visualization is to show content onto the 3D material. you will see there is no shadow, there is no opaque or other papers types, and that's very explicit why we didn't do that. The reason is to show the content on the shape. And I think anything more than that would be for a visualization solution that is beyond ours, because we are focusing on the document editing.
Got it. It's still very useful to see that level of 3D for any kind of packaging materials.
Indeed, and we will try to push it as far as we would like to, but we will also try to be very faithful to our base, and that is document editing.
Very good. I think that's all the questions, and I think we've also run out of time. Thank you so much, Bram, for showing us Chili Publish today. And if anyone would like to have a more in-depth demonstration or to see how this might work with Zynet or other solutions you already have in place, feel free to drop me an email at jill@iointegration.com. You can also get a hold of Bram directly. Bram, I think, did you want to put back up your Twitter and other, there you go, at Chili Publish?
Indeed, so you can follow us at Twitter, and of course, same thing with IO, I guess. We also have a LinkedIn group and a Facebook. The Facebook part is more of the fun part. So please follow us, get in contact with us. If you have more information, I think you will be the first in line to answer your customers, but we're more than happy to assist you or your customers with questions.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.
Okay.